Ironman Chattanooga 2024 is in the books. And today I want to talk all about my journey that led me to deciding to do this Ironman this year, what that training and nutrition plan looked like, what it took, how I changed, and all the challenges that came up along the way. I'm also going to be following up with a video of a recap of race day. So actually everything that happened on race day, my nutrition, the wins, the challenges, but I'm going to save that for the next video. This video is going to be all about my journey, getting into my mindset of why did I decide to do this? What did I learn about along the way? And what were the challenges I faced along that journey? This journey to Ironman Chattanooga 2024 really started last year. Last year, I did my first half-distance Ironman. And for those of you that don't know, a half-distance Ironman is a 1.2-mile swim into a 56-mile bike into a 13.1-mile half marathon run to finish it off. I was inspired by a fellow friend, a fellow triathlete, to get into triathlon last year. I had been doing marathons, been getting more competitive over the past 3 to 4 seasons, and this friend of mine really gave me a nudge in the direction to begin to tackle triathlons. Now, I had no background in swimming and no background in biking in any competitive manner, so there's a lot of things were new to me, but I was excited to really learn these new disciplines and see what I could accomplish at this immensely difficult and new task. I did that. I went to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I completed my first Ironman event, half distance, and it was incredible. The atmosphere, crossing the finish line, the training, all of it created such a shift in my personality, in my physical fitness, and I was hooked from that point. But I remember a thought after that race very vividly. I crossed the finish line of my first half distance and I thought, how in the world do people do a full distance? In my mind, I'm like, how is that even possible? I can't comprehend how people do that. And I really left it there. I finished that half distance race. I feel great. I loved my finish, but I really didn't put any thought into what the next year was going to be bringing for me. So that race finished. I was done with my season last year, and then really in December, I started to begin to plan. December is a big month for me where I begin to plan and vision into the following year. What races do I want to do? What's my training going to look like? My personal life, business goals. I really spend a lot of time cultivating that vision for the next year in December. As I'm doing this and I'm doing these practices, I remembered that thought I had at the end of the half-distance Ironman of, how in the world could you possibly do a full distance? That's crazy.
You're crazy. You're crazy, man.
And as soon as I remembered that thought, another thought came in of, you have to do that. We have to push into that next level. We need to understand what that is. We think it's impossible. Let's prove that wrong. And this is a mindset shift that I've been cultivating over the past few years and really have began to strengthen in these last couple of seasons of, if there's something in front of me that's challenging or there's resistance or it seems impossible, then that's typically the path that I'm going to take. Instead of leaning away, I lean into those things. I've really began to learn that typically the challenge is the way. The route that is most challenging, that's going to require the most of us, is often the route that's most rewarding and it's going to create the biggest shifts in our lives. I inherently knew this about moving from this half distance to this full distance Ironman, and I knew what it was going to take because I knew what it took to get to that half distance. So I knew double that was going to be something that I hadn't done before, and it was going to take another level of dedication, discipline, training, nutrition, and that's exactly what it did. So December, we decide we're going to put it on the calendar. I looked around at all the different Ironman events. I looked at my schedule, what worked as far as the time of year, and I landed on Chattanooga, Tennessee. It looked like a beautiful area. It was a great course for beginners. It had a really nice swim in the bay, and the course, while being hilly and rolling, wasn't a tremendously high elevation course in terms of how much elevation you go up during the bike and the run portion of it. So Chattanooga, Tennessee, I set it in my sights.
You are in my sights.
And I would say right about March is when I started my training plan. Over the winter, it's more strength work, more mobility, and just maintaining aerobic fitness. But the actual training plan started in March. Last year, I had a coach, and she was incredible. She really helped me to understand how to create a training plan. And since then, I got my own certification in triathlon coaching. I have dedicated thousands of hours into learning about training and how to structure training. What we do as athletes is we do a process called periodization. So from March to September was training, but it comes in training blocks. Everything is blocked out, and you can look at it in these 4-week segments is one part of the periodization. For 3 weeks, I would ramp up the distance that I'm doing. And then that fourth week, I would dial things back a little bit. And that fourth week is to give the body a little bit of ability to adapt and to recover. Because if we just exponentially continue to increase the amount that we're outputting indefinitely without giving the body appropriate time to recover, especially when we're putting in such high volumes, then you can lead to a higher rate of injuries, mental fatigue, physical fatigue. So it's important to understand how to put out at a high level, but also leave room for the adaptations to occur and for recovery to happen. Digging a little bit deeper into this, actual training cycle was broken up into different stages. So on that month to month, I had 3 weeks building up and then that recovery week. And I had 2 main races I was focusing on for the season. I had a half distance triathlon. It wasn't Ironman series. It was a local triathlon, the Hudson Valley Triathlon that I did in, I believe it was June. So that was one priority race. And then beyond that was then I was right into the block training for Chattanooga. The whole year leading up to the half distance was something that I was used to. Last year, I understood the training volume it required to do the 70.3 distance. I was right back into training. I had a lot of foundations from last year to get to that June race, that Hudson Valley half distance. Training went well. It was feeling great. It was familiar. I had a really great performance. I actually came in within a minute of my time from last year, but the course was a lot hillier. So given all conditions, I was really happy with that finish, having the same time as Atlantic City, but Atlantic City was dead flat. There was no elevation on the bike or the run, whereas the Hudson Valley one had a lot of elevation on the bike and a decently hilly run. So I was really happy with that performance, and I knew that I was growing and I had gotten faster from last year. Now, once that race was over, there was a part of me that absolutely knew we were in uncharted territories now. Because again, I understood the training volume, which was about 8 to 12 hours a week I was doing, split between the 3 disciplines of swimming, biking, and running. But now to double that, now to do a 2.4 mile swim into a 112 mile bike and then run a full marathon at 26.2 miles, this is going to take a whole different level of training. In my biggest weeks, I was upwards of 13 to even 17 hours a week, going from 8 to 12 hours a week. So this was a massive increase, and this all started after that half distance I did this year. And I'll be honest, there was some nerves when I got done with that half distance and I knew the training was about to really ramp up and the work I was already putting in. There was a part of me that's like, oh shit, things are about to get real and we have to really get granular in every area of my life. Because training is this big portion and it's a big part of life, and it's not like there's life then training. It's incorporating my whole life to include that training, and the training was the priority. This was the biggest goal, the biggest thing I was moving towards. So really, week to week and month to month, I was planning my training, planning work, planning business, and then planning family and fun and all those things around. You'll hear this from the highest achievers time and time again, that to achieve really great things, it's not about what you say yes to, it's about what you say no to. This became very clear and evident that I had to say no to a lot of things to maintain vision and maintain my sights on the biggest goal I had, which was not only completing Ironman Chattanooga, but doing so in the fastest time possible. So there was nights out, there was events, there was times with friends where I had to prioritize getting that rest so I could get up for that training session in the morning. I had to prioritize the things that were most important to me while also maintaining some level of balance of still having the ability to see friends, the ability to see family. Things were definitely skewed in a manner that really aligned with what my highest priority was, which was this training, this recovery, and really going out and having a great performance in Chattanooga. All in all, the training was great. Training was almost the easy part because I had everything laid out. I had a training plan that I had built out using my knowledge from last year as a framework and a baseline, and then expanding upon that through my learning and all the things I've learned about training for a full Ironman. So I built out my training schedule, and training, it's all on the calendar. Just go out, run this distance. But managing everything else on top of that, that can be where the real challenge is, right? Like, show up for the training session, you do it. Now managing your nutrition and fueling appropriately, having other responsibilities, being a dog dad, so still giving time to my dog. Days where I had to go run for 3 hours, come home, go right back to where I ran and go for a hike with my dog because she hadn't been out in a couple of days or we hadn't gone on a walk. These are the areas where it's really a full scope thing, and it has to be a lifestyle. When you're asking your body to perform between 9 and 12 hours straight on a given day of high physical output, it really needs to be a part of everything, and not in a bad way. It's just a singular focus on a very important goal. That's one of the biggest lessons. That's one of the biggest treasures that I've gained through this process. It's something that you can't buy. It's just instilled. And that's why I have fallen in love with the world of endurance sports and triathlon. That's why I have changed so much fundamentally in the best of ways. It's because when you make that commitment, when you put that date on the calendar, it forces you into being a type of person. A type of person that says they're going to do something and they do it. The type of person that can show up regardless of how they feel. The type of person that is comfortable with discomfort, right? Of learning how to really embody that, to push past that, and to really integrate that into the whole process. These are the things that you don't tangibly see, but they create such a character change that is just so impactful. Training wasn't perfect. I didn't show up to every single training session. I tried to really get to every training session I could. An older version of me would have missed one training session and beat myself up about it, would have said, oh, this has all went to crap, and I would have been really hard on myself. And it went to probably a dark place mentally. I used to be that all in or nothing type of a person. And I'm all about being all in, but it's not all in or nothing. It's not going to be perfect. We have life, things come up, our bodies feel different on different days. And yes, we have to learn how to show up regardless of how we feel. That's an important thing because we're not always going to feel motivated. We're not always going to feel fresh. We're not always going to feel great. So being able to show up regardless of that is absolutely crucial in many areas of life, not just physical fitness, but also understanding, hey, some days you're not going to make a training session or things aren't going to go to plan. So what do? We come back, we look at that, and then we adjust accordingly moving forward. It's having that flexibility. This is an interesting thing that I learned throughout the season because it's having flexibility, but then having rigidity to show up regardless and show up for, at one point I was doing 7 training sessions a week every single day. So having the rigidity and the discipline to show up and to continue to show up day in and day out, and then also have the flexibility. There's this fine line because the brain is trying to stay in comfort. The brain will continually give me excuses of why I should skip. And let me tell you, over the course of these 8 months of training, more days than not, there was a voice in my head telling me why I should take a day off or why I should take it easy. So more times than not, I had to hear that voice and work through that. I very intentionally say work through that, not push that away. I don't force it away because, hey, it's a part of me. I don't want to be at war with myself. Those parts are coming up. It's okay. I don't judge them. I allow them the space to say, hey, we're tired. We don't want to do this. This sucks. Our legs are hurting. We want to stay in bed. We want to cuddle with Luna. All the excuses come up, and I give them the space to do so. And then I remind myself of why we can't listen to that and why we need to do what we're doing. And I remind myself of my why. Why do I do this? What is my goal? And why is it so important to me? And this was fundamental in my process. And this is an ever-evolving process because there are points too. Sometimes you need to take a day off. Maybe the body is really speaking to you and the body's really saying, hey, we would be at greater benefit if we took today off and then switched our routine for the rest of the week. It's about finding the line between not giving in to excuses, but then also understanding when the body's telling you, hey, it's time to take a break. And I cannot sit here and give you a solid answer on how to understand those signals. I'm still learning that for myself. I've gotten a lot better at it through this season, but this is an ever evolving process because we have all this wearable technology and this data and all this information we use, especially as triathletes, and I love it. I have my watch, my heart rate data, all these things that are telling me how prepared I am. But the most important thing that I can cultivate in this is my relationship to my body. And that's something I paid very close attention to through what I was eating, how I felt with that, tracking different, patterns of having certain amounts of carbs, certain amounts of protein and fats, and timing my meals. How was my body responding? Doing certain training sessions at certain paces. How did my body feel? So such an important part of this process was really deeply connecting with my body, the signals of my body, and understanding, hey, is my body trying to tell me a real signal to back off? Or are we just trying to take it easy? And is this just an excuse coming up? This is something so foundational throughout this process. And I feel like it's something I had a really good understanding and relationship with before, but through this process and really, again, working out 6-7 days a week, having a really tall goal of a race that's going to last 10 to 12 hours, I really had no choice but to become very efficient at that. And speaking of efficiency, time management and time, I like to use the term time prioritization. It's really about understanding where are your priorities for your time. I've taken out of my vocabulary, I don't have the time, because to me, I feel like when I say I don't have the time, I'm just reinforcing the fact that I don't have the time. So if I feel I don't have the time for something, I just say it's not my priority to put my time there, because that's the truth. We all have the same amount of hours in a day, yet some people are doing triathlons with full families, they're with businesses with hundreds of employees, all different walks of life, all different responsibilities, all different time responsibilities, and they're still able to perform at a high level. I don't want to give myself excuses and say I don't have the time. I just need to understand it's how am I prioritizing my time. This is having discipline about the time I go to bed. This is about discipline about the time that I wake up. I'm not saying you have to wake up at 4 a.m. And typically, I wasn't waking up very, very early. I have learned to go with the patterns of the body. There's some times where I have more energy at night. So I did some more night sessions and I would sleep in a little more. But then there were some weeks where I had different responsibilities. Maybe it was for work, for my business, with family, where we don't have that opportunity at night. So we have to get this in the morning. And I prefer the mornings. I prefer to get the workouts out in the beginning of the day, the training sessions done in the beginning of the day. I think the longer it goes in the day, the easier it is for those excuses to try to get out of it. In my experience, the earlier I could get it done, the better. That being said, I have a bit of a challenge in the mornings. Waking up and just going out on a run or going out on a bike or going out on a swim can be challenging for me. I love to lean into challenge, but I'll also work with that as well if I have the flexibility to say, I'm going to use this morning to maybe go for a hike with Luna or do content, and then in the afternoon, I'm going to do my run. And then I could also help with weather, temperature, things like that. But time prioritization is something that becomes fundamental. It is so important through this process, and I really gained a lot of insights and discipline around saying no to things and also creating that time for the things that are important to me. My dog, my family, time with friends, work, growing my business, helping other triathletes and runners. It can't be thought of in a silo. It's not like triathlon and home life and business life. Everything is one cohesive unit. When I plan it that way. I build my schedule out month by month, week by week, and really put time and intention into understanding where that time's going. Because then otherwise, if you don't plan that, then it's so much easier to not have the time for the training or never to see your family or all the other list of things to do. And then you're just like, well, I didn't have the time. My question to you be like, where was the time going? You know where your time's going. How much time is spent scrolling? How much time is spent watching movies or any other things that could have been replaced with things that would have been filling your cup in a different manner? So just a higher level of appreciation of that process. And that was really instrumental to getting through this training. And then nutrition. They call nutrition the fourth discipline. And I really experimented a lot. I did a lot of research on what the science says and also what other athletes are doing to really lock in what my training plan was as far as nutrition. I decided to be very carbohydrate heavy. When we do intense exercise, especially at a very high level, we are using carbohydrates. And especially when we're in the 90% and above heart rate, we are pretty much solely coming from carbohydrates. So having topped off carbohydrates is going to be important, especially if you're doing 2-a-day workouts, which I was doing sometimes, or you're doing back-to-back days. Because if you deplete your carbohydrates and then you're not filling them back up, and then you may be sluggish for the next training session, you're not getting the results from that training session that you could have gotten, and you're just leaving stuff at the table. Being really intentional with my nutrition, and then also understanding I'm training my body for race day. Going through a 10 to 12 hour race, you're consuming carbohydrates and fats throughout the race. Your body needs to adapt to working out, doing a training session, and also consuming and using those exogenous calories and macronutrients in your workout sessions. Your body is constantly adapting, whether we're training or we're not training. Whatever we're doing, the body is adapting to that. We want to get as close as we can to race day as we do in our training, so that when we get to race day, there's no questions. The biggest highlight I have on my race day plan is nothing new on race day. No new goggles, no new eating strategy. Everything has been fine-tuned. I know how my body's going to react. I know how many carbs I need per hour. That's not to say everything's going to go perfect on race day. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be curveballs, but we control what we can control. And this happens in training. A lot of intention. I did track my calories and my macronutrients throughout the season. It's something that I personally enjoy. It's pretty simple with the app that I have. I weigh my food out and then I eat stuff regularly. So it's like right on top in the app. It's easy to log in. And I really knew exactly what I was taking in. And as far as nutrition goes, I did implement some supplements. I'm definitely a person that believes most of our nutrition should come from the foods that we eat, but supplementation can fill some gaps, especially when we're doing higher intensity stuff and there's some supplements that can really help with recovery. Top of that list is creatine. Creatine is the most time-tested, the most studied supplement. It's very difficult. We'd have to have a ton of meat to get the amount of creatine to really maximize, and it's part of the phosphocreatine system, so it helps with energy production, and now studies are showing that it's really good for brain health and cognition. There's benefits in all areas of life. There's minimal, if any, downsides to it. I take 5 grams a day, and that's really at the foundation where I think athletes, non-athletes alike, creatine is such a great go-to supplement. Other than that, using protein powder to ensure I was getting enough protein. I was aiming for about 150 grams of protein a day, 1 gram per pound of body weight. I think that's a great baseline, especially if for someone who is training very regularly and wants to maintain muscle mass, especially with all the cardio I was doing and a minimal amount of resistance training. I wanted a high protein intake so I wasn't sacrificing muscle mass while I was training. And I will say throughout the season, I retained a lot of muscle mass. I feel like I maintained a lot of strength. And again, I was doing very minimal strength training. I actually probably could have invited a little bit more of it into it. And I'm going to be doing so next season, and definitely a lot off of this winter season of training. Other supplements that I took rhodiola rosea, which is one for recovery. I was taking L-glutamine, L-theanine. I took cordyceps mushroom. Cordyceps mushroom is known to facilitate ATP production, so again, energy production. So again, all these supplements were just another tool for me to maximize my ability to create energy, to have energy, and to recover from these day in and day out workouts, which were compounding over time. And ultimately, it was great. I was amazed on how I felt at times. During training season, there is just a general level of fatigue that's just felt. I won't say at all times, but you're feeling it. You're putting out, you go run 15 miles and you're biking 50 miles and you're swimming 2 miles. That compounds. And that's why it's important, as I talked about, periodization. Giving those weeks where we dial it back a little bit. We take a little, I don't want to say take a break, but we just allow the body space to adapt, to grow back stronger, and to even give some of that mental relief off the massive volume that's going on. So all in all, it was fantastic. And as I got deeper into the season, it's interesting because if I would have looked at the training plan 4 weeks out of the race in the beginning of the season, I would have looked at that and said, that is absolutely crazy. There's no way I can do that amount of volume in a week. The biggest thing I learned about this process is it's just a block by block incremental progress over the season, right? So what I mean here is like, if I go do a 10-mile run, I'm like, okay, I did 10 miles. Well, I did 10. I know I could do 10 and a half. And then you go the next week, you do 10 and a half. And then you get done with that. You're like, wow, I did 10 and a half. I know I could have done another half a mile. You do 11. And, this process just unfolded with all of them. I trained for 11 hours this week. I know I could do 11 and a half. I trained for 11 and a half. I know I could do 12. But then if you're doing 6 hours a week and you try to go to 15 hours a week, your body is going to be like, what in the hell is going on? And you might get injury. There's a lot of negative things that could happen from that. So there's such power in this incremental process. And I had this big, long goal in focus, but really all I needed to focus on was the next week, right? If I did this week, I can bring it up a little bit for next week. And if I did that, I can bring it up for a little bit for next week. And that's really what gave me the confidence, because I will tell you right now, in March, I didn't have the confidence of my ability. I had my confidence in the ability to complete the race, but not nearly in the times that I was able to accomplish. That confidence was only built week by week. And each week my confidence grew, my ability grew, and there's this thing called the confidence competence loop. As we gain more competence, we gain more confidence. As we gain more confidence, we gain more competence. And it's this never-ending loop that feeds into itself. And the thing is when we start new things, we don't have the competence. So we just have to start. We have to get the repetitions in. We have to be not so great at things so that we build the competence. And then week in and week out, we build the confidence that then feeds into more competence. And then all of a sudden, this is a snowball rolling down a hill. And that's what this season felt like. In the beginning of the season, I didn't know what my competence would be. And then all of a sudden, by 3/4 into the season, I was like, I'm not only going to finish this, I'm going to have one hell of a time for my first Ironman. And that was just through building that confidence through repetition. And confidence is something that's cultivated. We're not just born with it. Maybe some people are more inherently confident than others, but having confidence is knowing your ability to accomplish something. And how do you know your ability to accomplish? You do a lot of repetitions of it. You do it time in and time out. You prove to yourself in your ability to do it. You start where you're at, and then you build upon that in building blocks. And that's really what this season was all about for me. Building blocks leading into this Ironman Chattanooga race. And being able to block it off like that was so important. It was so crucial. And that's truly, in a mindset perspective, what got me through to the end. Really focusing on that next week, honoring myself for where I was, and really taking it slow, step by step throughout the process. I can't describe, sitting here and looking back, it's phenomenal. A thought came to me as I was, driving away from Chattanooga. I was like, man, would I rather a one-on-one session with Tony Robbins, or would I rather sign up for another endurance event? And to me, I feel like I get more benefit signing up for an endurance event than getting one-on-one personal coaching from Tony Robbins. Because when you sign up for an endurance event, the date is on the calendar and you have to show up. And to show up, you have to become a certain person. There's certain characteristics, there's certain traits that you must embody that get pulled out of you. This best version of yourself begins to come forward to achieve this massive goal. Yeah, one-on-one with Tony Robbins would be incredible, and he has some great insights and perspectives and is a master at his craft. But he could tell you all the things in the world in that 1 hour or even one day with him. But then what? Then you have this knowledge that you have to turn into results. And everyone has knowledge at their disposal. And on the other side of the knowledge is results. Well, how come everyone has access to knowledge, but not many people have the results that they want? There's a broken link in there. There's a missing link between knowledge and results. This is what gets cultivated throughout this process. That discipline, the time prioritization, the ability to say no to things, the ability to maintain focus on a goal that's important to you. These are all those core fundamental character traits that are inherently built throughout this process. Now, I'm not saying a coach isn't important. I loved having my coach last year. I had a very solid support structure around me for this season of fellow athletes that I tapped in with regularly, especially to get me through the challenging times. So having a mentor, having a coach is instrumental. But what I'm saying is the mere fact of deciding to do something so great and above and beyond, and things that like 1% of the 1% in the world of people will decide to do, that in itself begins to build this new character that money can't buy. Forget the cost of the race, all of that. Like, there's no price to be put on who you cross that finish line as on race day. And that's why I'm addicted. I am addicted to this sport. I am just starting my triathlon career. I have a lot of lofty goals ahead of wanting to finish podiums and compete for my age group. But there's a lot of things I'm addicted to in the process. The physical fitness is great. Achieving things that once felt impossible, unbelievable. Crossing the finish line, race day, the energy, the palpable energy, the stories of the people, the special needs people that can't run, they're on the hand bikes. The people I ran in Chattanooga past a blind guy who he was on a tether with a person supporting him, so all of these stories, and then just the energy, the palpable energy of people from ages 18 to 80 on the same course. Professionals, the pros racing for their career, the mom with 3 kids at home, the age groupers, all on the same course with the same vision, with the same goal, racing together. It is such a unique thing. And then you have the crowd. You're running through the crowd. People are cheering you on. They're giving you support, and you feel like superhuman. You're like, I'm just a person running a race, and you're out here supporting me, and you're volunteering. They're all there to watch you, to watch this spectacle of human endeavor. And I can't put words to it. I can feel it through my body right now. That's what I'm addicted to. That's why I love this sport. That's why I love supporting people in this sport. And that's why I'm just beginning. Again, this started in marathons. Marathons were great. Another thing, electric atmosphere, an amazing human feat. But this whole world of triathlon is just a next level of crazy. It definitely takes a certain level of crazy to do triathlon. And to bring all of those people together under one roof, and to be able to connect with those people, to hear their stories, the things they're overcoming, people that have overcame cancer or have donated organs to family members. I've seen it all, and I've watched a lot of videos. I draw inspiration from that. I draw inspiration from the 70-year-old that passes me on the bike course. I'm like, I'm 36. This lady's probably double my age, and she just passed me on the bike course. Like, I could literally do this for another 35 years at a faster capacity or some capacity. Like, that is so inspiring to me. It reminds me that aging is a choice. Like, we're all going to get old, but how we age and how our bodies physically age, that's up to us. And we get to be the desires of that. Yes, things can happen. Of course, and that's why I appreciate every ability I have to run these races, to do these things while I am in good health. Anything can happen. But while the cards are in my hand and I have the capacity, I want to continue to get better. I think the Japanese term is Kaizen, 1% better each day, and that's how I try to live my life. I just want to be a little bit better each and every day, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And this sport, this community has thrust me so deep into that process, and I am so grateful for it. And I can't say enough about it. And that's why I do what I do, and that's why I've become a coach. That's why I coach others through this, because I just am so passionate about what this does. It's not about the event. It's about who you become. You become a better father, a better mother, a better business person, a better employee, a better friend. It makes you better in all aspects of life. And plus, you're physically fit. You feel good. You can play with your grandkids. You can play with your dog. The benefits go so far beyond the racetrack. And then in the racetrack, like in the race community, giving back, volunteer opportunities, raising money. There's just so much goodness in it, and it warms my heart, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. So that was my journey. This journey started with thinking that Ironman Chattanooga was impossible, doing a full distance. I couldn't conceive how that was possible. This is the reminder that impossible is a limiting belief. Impossible doesn't exist, right? There's that one meme that's like impossible, and then they put apostrophe. It says I'm possible. We can choose to create possibility, and extraordinary people just do ordinary things extra, right? I'm not, I don't believe I was born with any different genetics. I was overweight for most of my life, not athletic, just an average Joe that struggled in high school sports and was actually quite angry about it, quite frustrated. I used to look down upon all the star athletes thinking they just had the genetics to make it work, when in reality, they just had work ethic. Yeah, some people are predisposed more athletically. I will honor that, but I wasn't putting in the work. I didn't have the work ethic. I didn't have the belief in myself. And when I shifted that, when I was able to move through that, a whole world of possibility opened. And now my life is dedicated to seeking those things that other people or even myself think is impossible. That's my journey. That's what inspires me. That's what keeps me going, because again, there's no feeling like it. It's tapping into this unrealized potential that's limitless. We have limitless potential to actualize. And my biggest fear in life is getting to the end of my life and realizing that I had more to give, or that there was more potential for me to unlock, and I didn't, because I took it safe, or I didn't decide to lean into the challenge. And this is what drives me. This healthy fear around not living up to the full potential that I could live up to. And that's going to continue to drive me forward. And again, this is the beginning of my career in Ironman. I'm actually going to be taking some time off of full distance because, as I mentioned, I want to be an age group contender. I want to contend for podium finishes. And so to do that, I'm going to be focusing on half distance, getting faster, and really honing in my abilities in the half distance before moving on and getting back into the full distance. So this was my journey to Ironman Chattanooga. This is a journey into my mind of why I do these things and the importance of it, how it's changed me fundamentally, a bit of my training and nutrition. As I mentioned, in the next video, I'm going to break down the full race, what it felt like, what the nerves were, what the challenges were, what the wins were, and go over full race day. As always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you on the next podcast for the race day recap. Thanks for tuning in.